Chapter 2. The first cause of depression, toxins. Quote, by cleansing your body on a regular basis and eliminating as many toxins as possible from your environment, your body can begin to heal itself, prevent disease, and become stronger and more resilient than you ever dreamed possible. End quote. Dr. Edward Group III, MD. Quote, all truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as self-evident. End quote. Arthur Schopenhauer. This above quote speaks volumes about the world of medicine today. Many times I have heard those in the Western medicine world both ridicule and violently oppose the truths of Chinese medicine. Yet history is not on the side of those that ridicule or oppose it. Nowadays, it seems that people are ridiculed or opposed if they question Western medicine, its practices, or the scientific method. Chinese medicine is viewed skeptically today. However, it will become self-evident that Chinese medicine and its principles of living in harmony with nature will be the answer to our health both now and in the future. Those who question the official Western medical narrative often get maligned, ridiculed, or opposed from within and outside the system. Questioning the symptom management and drug model of medicine often results in being labeled a quack and, at times, being subject to ridicule. Sadly, though, when it comes to understanding the origin or etiology of many of the chronic health problems we have today, all that is known is as follows, quote, exact etiology unknown, end quote. So many people have shown up in my clinic over the years with a similar story where doctors don't know what is causing their health issues. They come looking for answers out of desperation. They don't know what else to do, but have a tremendous drive to heal. This response is one that is commonly given when people are faced with a new diagnosis of chronic disease. Doctors will say, quote, we aren't completely sure what the cause is, but genetics and some other dietary and lifestyle factors may be a factor, end quote. I hear this all the time from my patients when they retell their stories to me. Genetics are blamed, which implies that not much can be done because we are just victims to the genes that we have received from our ancestors. Yet I believe that we can state with certainty what the exact causes are of most chronic health problems today in the world, both on a macro and micro level. The truth of what is behind most chronic health problems has been ridiculed in our world today, even violently opposed. However, I am confident that one day in the near future, the truths of what are causing the chronic health issues today will become self-evident. As mentioned earlier, epigenetics leads us in the direction of our environment as the cause behind most health problems in the world today. It is not our genetics. First, let's start on the macro level and talk about which broad environmental factors are behind chronic disease and depression. Three environmental factors stand at the root of almost every chronic health problem in the world today. Those three factors are toxins, nutritional deficiencies, and stress. Understandably, these are very broad factors, and the mind instantly wants to know which specific toxins, nutritional deficiencies, and sources of stress are the largest contributors. However, it behooves us to talk in broad strokes first about these things because, while specific things may apply to specific conditions, we must see the big picture first. Before we expound on each of these topics, it is critical to understand on an even more simple level how these three factors create depression and ill health. When toxins, nutritional deficiencies, and stress are present, they all contribute to creating a state of inflammation in the body. Depression has been aptly called by some as simply inflammation of the brain. Toxins, nutritional deficiencies, and stress literally heat up the body and lead to the creation of inflammation in the organs, glands, muscles, tissue, and skin. As a result of the rise of this state of inflammation that grows out of control in the body, opportunistic pathogens can then grow uninhibited. Leading research is pointing in the direction of depression as being caused by chronic inflammation in the body. The sources of inflammation in the body must be dealt with and nourished properly. A study in the journal Neuropsychopharmacology indicated this connection between inflammation and depression, stating, quote, psychosocial stress, diet, obesity, a leaky gut, and an imbalance between regulatory and pro-inflammatory T cells also contribute to inflammation and may serve as a focus for preventative strategies relevant to both the development of depression and its reoccurrence, end quote. Australian researchers also concluded that, quote, a range of factors appear to increase the risk for development of depression and seem to be associated with systemic inflammation. These include psychological stressors, poor diet, physical inactivity, obesity, smoking, altered gut, allergies, dental cavities, sleep, and vitamin D deficiency, end quote. Here is the progression towards depression and chronic health problems. Toxins, nutritional deficiencies, and stress lead to the growth of pathogens, virus and bacteria, which leads to widespread inflammation, which then leads to chronic health disease and problems. This is the very simple progression of how depression and other health problems get started in our world today. When the immune system is not being supplied with the right nutrients that literally can cool the body down and quell the fires of inflammation, pathogens rise up to plague the body. Behind most of the chronic health problems we see in the world today, you will find a viral or bacterial factor or both. So the progression is straightforward. Toxins, nutritional deficiencies, and stress destroy the immune system and lead to widespread inflammation in the body. When this inflammation occurs and goes unchecked, viruses and bacteria take note of this opportunity, begin to grow uninhibited by an already compromised and weakened immune system, which leads to long-term chronic health problems and disease. Long-term chronic inflammation in the body is being fueled by either a virus or a bacteria. When you have any kind of condition with an itis on the end of it, you can be sure a viral or bacterial component is present and at work in sustaining the inflammation. Pathogens are opportunistic. Much like a lion will try to pick on the baby antelope or the smallest antelope of the group, pathogens seek out weak or injured parts of the body to set up camp and proliferate. This is especially the case when injuries occur. Parts of the body that have been weakened or injured over time are places that are ripe, fertile grounds for pathogens. Injuries aren't limited to physical injuries, though. Organs and other parts of the body can be injured, especially by non-physical things such as emotional traumas. Any kind of injury must be considered when a part of the body is not functioning optimally. In fact, inflammation of any kind that is chronic should be a warning to us that systemic inflammation is occurring on some level. Overuse, as is the case in athletes, underuse, misuse, exposure to metals and toxins over time, eating toxic inflammatory producing foods, and emotional traumas cause and create inflammation, leading to chronic inflammation sustained by pathogens. In order to heal, the offending metals and chemicals must be removed, the body and immune system must be strengthened with proper food and supplements, emotional traumas need to be released from the mind and body. Once this occurs, people can heal from disease and health problems of all kinds, including depression and anxiety. That is it. It really is quite simple. Health is simple. It is disease that's complicated. If people could learn what constitutes good health early in life, the risk of getting chronic disease would be significantly diminished. Having said this, let's explore in further detail some of the physical toxins and nutritional deficiencies that create inflammation in the body and support a state of depression in the body. Environmental toxins. On some level, we are all familiar with the idea that toxins are a significant factor behind chronic disease. Yet, on a more personal level and as a society, we fail to see very common traits that we are exposed to on a daily basis as the cause behind the many health problems we have. It is almost as if we are waiting for the media or the medical world to make an astonishing discovery in order to start taking responsibility for something in our world that is contributing to disease before we do something about it. Most of the toxins that we are exposed to are mild compared to some of the things that we have learned in the past that directly cause disease. As mild as they may be in toxicity, when they are combined with the hundreds of other chemicals and metals we are exposed to on a daily basis, the results in our current societal health are catastrophic. Let's examine a few examples in history. In 1977, the USA banned the use of lead paint along with toys, car gasoline, and furniture containing lead. Apparently, children were ingesting paint chips that had fallen off of walls and were getting very sick. So lead was labeled a public health hazard and was banned from certain products. Lead is an environmental toxin that causes nervous system damage, stunts growth, damages the kidneys, and delays development. It does much more than this, but these are a few of the many symptoms elicited in the average person. While we have banned paint, toys, and other things with lead, it has not disappeared from our world today. In 2007, the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics found lead in 61% of lipstick brands out of 33 studied. I cringe when I see women using lipstick in the world today, knowing that there is an almost 2/3 chance that it contains lead. Lead contributes to damaging the hormonal system as well. We see women today with all kinds of hormonal issues ranging from painful periods, infertility, and menopausal symptoms of hot flashes and night sweats. Lead may be a contributing factor to this in conjunction with other toxins. Lead is just one of the toxins found in lipstick. While lead was removed from gasoline that we put into cars, it was not removed from airplane fuel. Lead is in 70% of airplane fuel, so living under flight paths or near airports can be very harmful due to lead that gets dumped into the air. Airports are common in big cities where the majority of the population congregates. This means that a good percentage of the population is still getting a steady dose of lead in small amounts on a daily basis through the air that we breathe and the things we touch that have residue that has fallen from the sky. Pesticides and DDT. What are some of the other examples of things from our environment that glaringly contribute to chronic disease? Not long ago, we saw medical doctors advertising for cigarette companies, advocating how amazing smoking was. Very quickly, we learned that this leads directly to lung cancer and other chronic health problems. This hasn't just been isolated to the smoking of cigarettes. We seem to blindly believe in anything that medical doctors and Western medicine push on us these days and determine to be safe. Oftentimes, we are not questioning if something is detrimental to our long-term health or if a much better option exists outside of what we are being given and told. In 1972, the insecticide DDT was banned due to it being linked to cancer and the threat it was having on wildlife, especially birds. If this insecticide was banned, should we not start taking a look at all insecticides as harmful and damaging? These chemicals target and destroy the nervous system of insects. We absorb these chemicals too, but since we are much larger than insects, the reactions are not as pronounced and the damage is not done as quickly. They damage our nervous systems just as severely, but more slowly over long periods of time. Asbestos. Not long ago, asbestos was commonly used in building materials as an insulator and for its resistance to fire. It was soon discovered that inhalation of asbestos fibers lead directly to lung cancer, mesothelioma, and other health concerns. Even as recent as 2018, 22 women won a lawsuit for $4.9 billion from Johnson & Johnson claiming they got ovarian cancer from baby powder containing asbestos. What we breathe in and put on our bodies in the form of powder can have a tremendous impact on our health. We need to question everything that we put on our body, breathe in, and consume. Chemicals galore. In the world today, we have more than 84,000 chemicals on the market. Many of us are exposed to hundreds of these chemicals every day. Yet virtually none of them have been studied for safety or are deemed as safe up to acceptable levels. As time goes on, people are suing the manufacturers of chemicals and toxins that are overtly contributing to chronic health problems. I would argue that many, if not most of the toxins that people are exposed to, have direct consequences to health over years and decades of constant exposure. They may be safe and not much of an effect in the spans of weeks, but after months and years of exposure, the consequences to our health are anything but safe. Just as it may take 20 or even 30 years for lung cancer to develop in the life of a chronic smoker, exposure to other common toxic chemicals on a daily basis may lead to other forms of cancer. I'm convinced that exposure to hundreds of chemicals in our personal care products every single day or decades has already led us to chronic diseases and health problems. These chemicals are contributing to the rise of cancer in the world. Fighter fighters, for example, are 14% more likely to develop cancer than those in the general population due to exposure to fire retardant chemicals that are commonly used in their profession. Tampons and sanitary pads are actually considered, quote, medical devices, unquote, and as a result, the ingredients that are used in them do not have to be disclosed on the packaging. Each sanitary napkin contains the equivalent of 4 plastic bags. Plastic comes from petroleum and contains BPA, BPS, phthalates, and synthetic fragrances. These are all toxic. Chlorine, genetically modified cotton, and other disinfectants are found in sanitary pads. These toxins are absorbed into the skin and surrounding tissues to which they are exposed. This creates an environment ripe for bacterial growth and symptoms that affect the reproductive area for women. Organic, unfragranced, chemical-free products exist that will not create environments of disease in women's reproductive areas. Chemicals in umbilical fluid. Our exposure to chemicals doesn't just begin after we are born. Toxins being ingested, inhaled, and touched are finding their ways to fetuses via the mother. The unborn are starting life out these days having to deal with a chemical cocktail that in time could prove to be devastating. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, neurosurgeon and CNN's chief medical correspondent, notes that 200 plus chemicals are found in umbilical cord blood of babies before they are born, potentially leading to autism, asthma, developmental disorders, childhood obesity, and other unknown health issues. Newborns have underdeveloped immune systems and may struggle with detoxifying these substances from their systems. Never before in our history has this been something that the human body has had to deal with. Mothers carry these toxins in their body and pass them along to their children. Armed with this knowledge, mothers should be guided, instructed, and encouraged with the information necessary to provide them with what they need to detoxify and make their bodies as suitable as possible for pregnancy. It is no wonder that fertility rates have skyrocketed in recent years, with many women left wondering why they're having such a hard time getting pregnant. A toxic body is not suitable to support life. Instead of trying to isolate which chemicals are causing problems, we should start with the assumption that they are all creating some kind of adverse health effects and should immediately take a much deeper look at removing these toxins completely from our lives. If we want to move in the direction of health, we must take conscious, responsible, and swift actions to reduce the amount of heavy metals and heavy chemicals we expose ourselves to. Our personal care products and cosmetics are loaded with disease-causing toxins. Over time, these chemicals build up, damage the liver, contribute to widespread inflammation, and confuse and destroy our hormonal or chemical system. Quote, the average woman in the U.S. uses about 12 personal care and cosmetic products daily, 168 chemicals on average. The average man uses about 6, end quote. This means that the average woman is exposed to hundreds of chemicals before she even goes to work in the morning. The risk of using hundreds of chemicals on a daily basis sets most people up for the perfect storm of disease and health problems, especially when combined with stress and nutritional deficiencies. You cannot use toxic chemicals with products that you put on your body every day and expect to be healthy over time. After years or decades of exposure, your body will begin to suffer. Chemicals alter enzymes and decrease their function, causing reproductive, nervous system, and possible carcinogenic effects. Enzymes accelerate chemical reactions and are necessary in almost every metabolic process in the body. When these chemicals are exposed to the skin, they are absorbed and quickly find their way in our blood. Your entire blood supply filters through your liver every 4 minutes. Depression is an expression mostly of poor health affecting the liver as seen through the lens of Chinese medicine. It is the liver's job to filter the blood and detoxify the body. After exposure to hundreds of chemicals on a daily basis that goes on for years, the liver gets tired and burns out, leading to disease and chronic health problems. Sodium lauryl sulfate. Let's make this personal. One of the most common ingredients in hand soap, shower soap, and shampoo is sodium lauryl sulfate. It is commonly used because it is inexpensive and is a good foaming agent. The Journal of the American College of Toxicology has deemed it an irritant causing skin reactions. Yet, it has been deemed safe for consumer use. How can something be considered safe when it is a known irritant causing skin reactions such as dermatitis? The powers that be determine levels that are accepted as safe to certain levels for humans. Yet in general, the immune system doesn't launch attacks upon things that assimilate well with the body. This is not the only chemical present in soap and shampoo. Not only is this chemical known to be an irritant, but when combined with other chemicals, it is a toxic chemical cocktail. Many people aren't aware that organic, safe alternatives exist that come from 100% natural ingredients, including oils like from coconut and essential oils. Changing your soap or shampoo to an organic or natural product is just one step that you can make to reduce the toxic load of chemicals and poisons that you are exposed to every day. This can go a long way in reducing inflammation in the body, but we need to go even further. Organic and natural products exist that can replace most of the toxic personal care products we use today. Take any of your personal care products and look at the ingredients. Most of them are hard to pronounce. They are toxic, man-made synthetic ingredients that contribute to disease, inflammation, and long-term chronic health problems. Let's take a look at one of the best-selling shampoos in the USA, Pantene Pro-V Nature Fusion, and see what kinds of ingredients are in this product. Now, at this particular time, I'm going to stop the reading of the book because there are so many toxins in here. I'm going to try to pronounce them all and explain this, but if I butcher them, I butcher them. Number 1, sodium lauryl sulfate. Number 2, cocamidopropyl betaine. In 2004, this substance was named Allergen of the Year and has been implicated in skin reactions. Number 3, sodium chloride, common table salt. Number 4, sodium xylene sulfonate, a surfactant that could elicit skin reactions. Cocamide MEA, surfactant, foam builder, and emulsifier. Contamination concerns are connected with the product together with nitrosamines, which are carcinogenic or cancer-causing. 6, sodium citrate. 7, citric acid. Flavoring, preservative, emulsifier, corrosive, irritant, allergen, may cause genetic defects, carcinogenic, danger to fertility, organ toxic, very ecotoxic. Number 8, fragrance, which is usually synthetic fragrance. It's an irritant, an allergen, and ecotoxic. Number 9, dimethiconol. Number 10, cassia hydroxypropyltrimonium chloride. Number 11, sodium benzoate. Hope I pronounced that right. Sodium benzoate. Organ toxic and an irritant. Number 12, disodium ETA, irritant, organ toxic, allergen, and ecotoxic. Number 13, benzyl salicylate, allergen and ecotoxic. Number 14, butyl phenyl methyl propionyl, harmful if swallowed, skin irritant, allergen, fertility damaging, and ecotoxic to aquatic life. Number 15, panthenol. Number 16, panthenyl ethyl ether. 17, hexyl cinnamol. 18, hydroxyisohexyl 3-cyclohexene carboxyldehyde. Number 19, alpha isomethyl ionone, corrosive, allergen, irritant, ecotoxic. Number 20, linalool. 21, Persea gratissima, avocado oil. 22, Bambusa vulgaris shoot extract. 23, methylchloral isothiazolinone, preservative, allergen, irritant, and ecotoxic. 24, methylisothiazolinone, preservative, allergen, neurotoxic, irritant, and ecotoxic. 25, Vitis vinifera, grapeseed extract. 26, 27, and 28 are yellow dye, blue dye, and red dye. And behind a lot of these in here, I listed links to scientific studies that had been linked to all of these different irritants. Is there really a need to have 28 different chemicals in shampoo? As you can see above, many of the ingredients found in this product cause irritations, produce allergic responses, are toxic to the environment, and are possibly carcinogenic. The levels of these chemicals in these products have been deemed, quote, safe for human beings, end quote. They are anything but safe. If this wasn't bad enough, we use many other personal care products in the morning that contain these chemicals. Other products have chemicals in them that are just as harmful. Here is a list of the most common personal care products that contain disease-causing toxins: shampoo, shower soap, deodorant, mouthwash, toothpaste, nail polish remover, makeup, lip balm, lipstick, hair products, hair dye, perfumes, colognes, body spray, body lotion, shaving cream. Additionally, you are exposed to other toxicants in shower water, drinking water, laundry detergent, fabric softener, dry cleaning fluid, tampons, pads, household cleaning products, air fresheners, insecticides, lawn care chemicals, hydrocarbons, and plastics. In many of these products, it is not just one carcinogenic chemical that is present, but many. They are combined together to create a toxic cocktail that you expose to your skin or breathe in day after day, year after year, without ever thinking about it. We have learned to blindly trust in the manufacturers of our personal care products without thinking if they're having slow but catastrophic effects on our health. I find that when people are educated about this, a good majority of people will say that this makes sense and will migrate over to using organic products. Stop and ask yourself the following questions about your own awareness before reading these last few pages. Have you ever considered that all the personal care products that you expose your body to may be one of the direct causes to your health problems, including anxiety and depression, but not limited to that? Has anyone ever mentioned to you how these chemicals may be more of a problem than you have ever considered? If you have heard something like this, have you dismissed it in your mind, thinking that it couldn't possibly make that much of a difference? When considering the toxicity of these products and switching to healthier products, did your emotional attachments arise in that moment to the products you already use and love? Said in a different way, do you not want to give up certain products because you are attached to them? Is smelling or looking good really more important to you than your health? Would you say the same thing if you were diagnosed with cancer? Would you have made better, more informed choices knowing the dangers that can arise from these chemicals? It is worth repeating again and again that these personal care products and other toxic metals and chemicals are definitely responsible for the deplorable state of health that we see in the USA today. Before we move on, I wanted to address an attitude that I hear from time to time with regards to these things. People tend to think that as one person, they couldn't possibly make a difference or that it really doesn't matter. Some people, when confronted with this information, may have the following response, quote, I'm going to die anyway, so what does it really matter, end quote. Here's the issue with that response. It is characteristic of irresponsibility not only one's own body, but also for the world. At the end of the day, many of these toxic chemicals get flushed down the drain only to poison our air, soil, and precious water supply. The effects of these toxic chemicals are doing untold damage to our environment. When millions of people decide that this doesn't matter, it pollutes the world at large, in addition to their own bodies. We need to educate, take responsibility, and think about future generations and the toxic world we are leaving them. You can make a difference. Change in the world starts with the small changes that each individual makes. Take a detailed look at all of the common products that you put on your skin, breathe in, and use that have toxic chemicals in them. The science may not exist that describes in great detail how toxic each chemical is, but that doesn't mean it's not toxic. Don't wait 30 years, like with cigarettes, asbestos, lead, or DDT, to hear about how toxic your personal care products are. Err on the side of safety and invest in products that already exist that are safe, non-toxic, chemical-free, and organic. Decades of using such products can prove to be a decisive factor in having health not only in the short term, but especially in the long run, not only for yourself, but also for your children. Quote, "From the bitterness of disease, man learns the sweetness of health." End quote. Catalan proverb. Toxins in our food. Perhaps the one area in our lives where we are exposed to the greatest quantity of toxins that contribute to poor health and disease is in the food we eat. Many people understand that what they are eating is not healthy, but when the toxins that are in the food are uncovered and exposed, it amplifies how important it is to make better dietary choices. Most people in the world know that they have to eat healthy, but few are doing what is truly healthy to ensure that cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and depression are not in their future. Some of the most common things that people eat are actually very unhealthy. Additionally, not taking responsibility commonly masquerades as thinking that having a little piece of cake couldn't possibly make that big of a difference. The little things count much more than we think. The problem is that people are not just making one poor dietary choice throughout the course of the day. People are making dozens of poor choices during the course of a day without even realizing it. Just as the hundreds of chemicals that we are exposed to via our skin that build up, clog, and pollute the body, all of the chemicals in our food do the exact same thing. We minimize the impact this is making in our lives because we don't want to take full responsibility for our health or change what we eat. We have the health we have because we have chosen our health in this way. Yet we can take responsibility and make better choices. We can have vibrant, disease-free health. Let's look at a couple examples of common foods that we eat that are some of the primary toxic catalysts behind why we are depressed, have disease, and have such poor health. Wheat. It's bad for everyone. Roundup, also known as glyphosate, weed killer from Monsanto, is the most common pesticide sprayed on food crops. It's the most common pesticide sprayed on food crops in the USA. In August of 2018, Dwayne Johnson was awarded a sum of $289 million in damages against Monsanto when Roundup glyphosate was linked to his development of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, otherwise known as cancer. This is the first time in history that someone has been awarded damages for a health condition linked to this herbicide. It is the most common herbicide used in the United States and is used in conjunction with Roundup Ready crops. Another name for these genetically modified crops, which have been created specifically to survive when application of this herbicide is used to kill weeds, but allows for the growing of such crops. So basically, this chemical kills and destroys everything around it, but leaves the genetically modified crops untouched. The most common genetically modified crops include wheat, corn, soy, canola, also known as what contributes to our fried food, and beets or sugar. In 2015, glyphosate was finally classified as most likely to be carcinogenic by the World Health Organization. Glyphosate has been in use since 1974 and is also the most commonly used herbicide by other countries in the world. Americans consume heavy amounts of genetically modified wheat products that are loaded with this cancer-causing chemical that have been doing so for much of the last 40 years. Wheat is a staple in almost every meal for some people. Some of the most common foods containing wheat are bread, pasta, pastries, English muffins, cereals, couscous, bagels, buns, crackers, chips, cakes, donuts, tortillas, beer, and cookies. This chemical has been used for over 40 years, and we are just now waking up to the fact that it contributes widely to inflammation and disease. Any chemical pesticide or herbicide that destroys smaller forms of life, like weeds or insects, is going to eventually destroy larger forms of life, such as humans. The rate of destruction is just a much longer period of time, think years or decades. These chemicals are absorbed into the foods that we are consuming when they are sprayed directly onto these crops. No one should be eating wheat at all today, just like no one should be smoking. It doesn't matter if you think you have an allergy to wheat or not. It is a horrible, toxic food for anyone to eat, even in small amounts. Glyphosate damages, pollutes, and creates disease in the body. Some of those most common reactions to this food include coughing, sneezing, asthmatic reactions, itching, rashes, diarrhea, muscle spasms, headaches, fatigue, tingling, abdominal pain, vomiting, nausea, anxiety, and feeling depressed. Gluten is the protein that is found in wheat and is named so because it is a, quote, sticky, unquote, protein. It is most commonly used in baked goods for being able to hold things together well. Gluten has been blamed and indicated in contributing to allergies and immune reactions of all kinds. The wheat that we use today is not the same wheat that has been used in cultures around the world for thousands of years. Genetic alteration has changed all that, and over 90% of the wheat in the USA today is genetically modified. Gluten is hard for the body to break down and then contributes to rotting and inflammatory reactions in the digestive system and in the rest of the body. It is not just those with celiac disease that suffer. Celiac disease is an autoimmune inflammatory disease that affects the small intestines. The small intestine gets inflamed due to a reaction from gluten. Everyone gets inflammation in the gut to some degree with the consumption of wheat. Gluten rotting in the gut leads to a rise in harmful bacteria and viruses, and also the creation of gases such as ammonia that are very harmful to the body and leak into the rest of the body. The immune system is attacking this rise of pathogens in the small intestines, not the body itself. The immune system isn't confused. It is doing its job and trying to take care of a pathogen flourishing in this part of the body. This has led researchers to identify gluten in creating celiac disease and other digestive disturbances. The genetic modification of the food and also the reaction of the immune system to glyphosate has proven to be catastrophic for humanity. This food should be avoided like the plague for every human being, whether you think you are allergic to it or not. When health continues to decline in the years to come, we will look back and see what a disaster wheat has been for humanity within the last century. We also have to make a distinction about what part of the wheat is used most often in food products. Wheat is composed of three parts: bran, germ, and endosperm. Bran is the hard outer layer. Germ is the reproductive part that germinates and is able to grow into a new plant. The endosperm is tissue that surrounds the germ and makes up the bulk majority of the grain, 80% of it. The endosperm is the part that is removed from the bran and germ to make wheat flour. Most white wheat flour is made from the endosperm. What makes whole grain flour distinct from regular wheat flour is having the endosperm, bran, and germ all together versus having just the endosperm. Oftentimes, the endosperm is bleached and made even whiter with a bleaching agent, which is a toxic chemical. These bleaching agents are permitted in the United States, but are outlawed in the European Union because it contributes to disease. Wheat flour is often enriched with synthetic vitamins to, quote, make up for, end quote, the loss of nutrients by not having the germ and bran present. Wheat flour that is bleached and, quote, fortified, unquote, with synthetic nutrients obviously is not what the human body was designed for. The germ and bran are the parts of the grain that have most of the nutrients, and these parts are absent from most wheat products on the US market. Whole books have been written about the dangers of modern-day wheat products. Wheat has been genetically modified so that it can be patented and owned. Only Roundup glyphosate can be used with this, quote, frankenfood, end quote, so that everything around it dies except the plant itself. In this process, the gluten or the protein is changed and the plant absorbs this toxic chemical. This toxic chemical is consumed by most people in the United States today, and over the decades has become a powerhouse of inflammation and cancer-causing destruction. When wheat is harvested, it is bleached, and most of the nutrients, the bran and germ, have been removed to make white wheat flour. Synthetic vitamins and nutrients have been added back into the flour because otherwise it is a lifeless, toxic, disease-producing food. But the addition of the synthetic vitamins doesn't actually change how horrible this once nutritious food is. This is what our breads, bagels, muffins, donuts, cereals, cookies, and cakes are made of. Modern wheat is a science experiment gone wrong, and you, the consumer, are the one being experimented on. People have started demanding these products start being labeled as they are in other countries, but until now, powerful lobbyists have prevailed. Genetically modified foods should be labeled so people have a choice in the matter of the food they consume. Wheat consumption and depression. A strong correlation exists between the consumption of wheat or gluten and depression. We know that wheat contributes to inflammation in the body, and depression is simply another form of inflammation affecting the brain and other parts of the body. I have seen incredible transformation with patients in the clinic when wheat is removed from the diet. Many of my colleagues have witnessed this too. Julie Ross, MA, in her book, The Mood Cure, states, quote, "Dozens of studies confirm that depression is a common symptom of gluten intolerance, one that usually disappears when wheat and the similar grains are withdrawn. Gluten has been implicated in mental illness since at least 1979, tremendous improvement in the symptoms of patients with depression and manic depression who have experimentally taken off gluten-containing foods." End quote. Dr. Jeffrey Morrison, in his groundbreaking book, Cleanse Your Body, Cleanse Your Mind, shares how one of his patients had all symptoms of schizophrenia disappear after removing wheat and gluten-containing products from his diet. If you want to feel less depressed, it is imperative that you remove wheat from your diet completely. As we mentioned, it is not just wheat itself that is a problem. Any food that has had commercial pesticides, insecticides, and herbicides sprayed in them find their way into the food itself, and when we consume these foods, these chemicals destroy our immune system and nervous system, contributing to inflammation and disease. This is why it is imperative to advocate for and consume organic food. People grew crops for thousands of years just fine before the use of these chemicals entered our world. Genetically modified crops are not better for the world, do not solve a food shortage, and do not yield higher crop volume. Monsanto has also been caught red-handed in consumer fraud and other unbecoming business practices. Many people have also touted Monsanto as being either the most or one of the most hated companies in the world. Here we have discussed how toxic wheat is, but other genetically modified foods are commonly consumed and people are mostly unaware of the damage they do. All of the other genetically modified foods should be avoided as well. Soy, corn, beets, where refined sugar comes from, and canola, commonly used to fry food, carry the same risks as wheat. The chemical companies have chosen these foods because they have been staples in the American diet for a long time. Why not target, patent, own, and sell both the seed and the herbicide to farmers? This ensures total domination of the food supply and the creation of disease in the general population. The chemical companies exist to make money, control and own the planet's food. Once a food is patented, it can be owned. Once something is owned, it can be controlled. The destruction of our food and health is due to greed, power, control, and domination, not for the betterment of our world. Farmers are not better off with these foods, neither is the general public. Genetically modified crops do not offer higher yields and are poisoning our food supply. Other chemical or pharmaceutical companies give you more chemicals, drugs, to deal with the health problems that these chemicals and horrible foods have created in us. Then those drugs cause secondary side effects that require more chemicals and drugs to deal with the side effects. This is not working, and will not work going into the future. Each of us must take our health back into our own hands. When people are exposed to these chemicals every day, they rob and steal from the body and mind until they no longer have any effective resources left. So frequently I hear such things from people such as, quote, "Nothing much in my life has changed and my diet remains virtually the same. My routine and health habits are as they always have been. But then one day, everything shifted and my health began a downward spiral." End quote. The same is heard often in the case of allergies as well. People mention that they have eaten the same things for decades, and then from one moment to the next, the body developed an allergy to something. Health shifted, and oftentimes, very pronounced symptoms started cropping up. What is really going on in these cases? The body of the average human is so adaptive and forgiving, but without adequate levels of nutrients over time, our resources get so depleted that the body cannot maintain things as they always have been. Then one day, the resources are exhausted and all hell breaks loose in the body. The body reaches a breaking point. Seeing it from another perspective, let's say you consume genetically modified conventional wheat every day, which is highly inflammatory for everyone. For most people, since it is biochemically in your system so frequently, the body gets used to the inflammation that such a food provokes. You may notice some symptoms, but choose to look the other way or do not know what to do about basic symptoms that may appear, such as gas, bloating, low energy after a meal, brain fog, headache, constipation, diarrhea, skin changes, etc. When such a progression occurs, people are surprised that one day, out of the blue, they develop cancer. It is as if the cancer just came out of nowhere. You cannot eat GMO wheat, dairy, GMO refined sugar, GMO corn, GMO soy, fried food, eggs, pork, and consume alcohol habitually for years and not expect something bad to happen. Those who live long lives despite consuming these things are the exception today, not the rule. Cancer doesn't just appear overnight, it takes years to develop. In the overwhelming majority of cases, many signs and symptoms were in place for decades before the cancer actually was diagnosed. When I really press people for information about what they experienced in the decades previous to getting cancer, 9 times out of 10 I find many symptoms that have persisted for years. Even something as small as gas is a symptom that must be paid attention to. When you get smelly gas, for example, it's a symptom that something didn't break down well in the body. It is sitting in the gut fermenting and is creating toxic fumes. Other aches and pains, which people just attribute to, quote, getting old, end quote, that have persisted for years before the development of a chronic disease, are a part of the canary in the coal mine. If you have persistent pain and inflammation in a certain part of your body for years, this is just one sign that you have reached a point where inflammation is already spreading in your body. Refined sugar from genetically modified beets. Before the turn of the last century, sugar was a commodity that was not easy to get your hands on. Therefore, sugar consumption was relatively low for much of the population. Refined sugar enters the body and creates inflammation. Sugar can even cause inflammation in the brain and endocrine glands, which are responsible for giving you many of the chemicals that contribute to you feeling good. This inflammation can give rise to the start of disease and health problems in any part of the body. Processed sugar is very toxic to the body. A great book to read on the subject is Suicide by Sugar, a startling look at our #1 national addiction by Nancy Appleton, PhD. In this book, she describes how sugar suppresses the immune system, artificially stimulates and elevates production of dopamine and serotonin, which is why it's so addictive, contributes to obesity, raises cholesterol and triglyceride levels, contributes to allergies, creates inflammation, and causes children to become hyperactive. The recent documentary entitled Fed Up is also a good tool to raise awareness about how damaging sugar is. Refined sugar leaches precious metals or minerals and nutrients from the body that are needed to help you feel better. It has been proven that sugar feeds cancer. We see so much more cancer in the world than we did 100 years ago. The average American is said to eat more than 130 pounds of processed sugar each year versus only 5 pounds in 1900. Added refined sugar makes up an astonishing 17% of the diet of an adult today. It has been said that coronary heart disease is hereditary for many people, but research has concluded that sugar is a powerful promoter of this disease, much more than genetics ever will be. Women may also be interested to know that increased consumption of refined sugar leads to aging and the appearance of more wrinkles on the face over time. Sweetened beverages such as soft drinks and diet drinks are associated with an increased risk of depression. Just consuming 1 can of soda per day equals 10% of one's recommended amount of calories, all in the form of refined sugar. Drinking soda is like pouring liquid inflammation straight into the body. Refined sugar feeds pathogens such as viruses and bacteria, perpetuating inflammation leading to chronic disease. A study following 8,000 people for 22 years showed that men who consume 67 grams or more of sugar per day were 23% more likely to develop depression than men who ate less than 40 grams per day. Other studies conducted have led to the same conclusion. Refined sugar consumption directly correlates with increased depression. One symptom that is often experienced simultaneously with depression is feeling fatigued or drained. In this state, it is easier to reach for sugar because it causes a rush of feel-good chemicals in the body, giving one a temporary boost of energy. However, the result is often a crash, making you feel worse than before you had the sugar in the first place. Research points in the direction of refined sugar consumption, creating an overall feeling of feeling drained in the body, leading to low energy and lethargy. Sugar is in everything these days. It seems like it is almost impossible to avoid. Even brown sugars or, quote, healthy, unquote, alternatives to sugar create inflammation in the body. The only safe sources of sweet things that I advocate for are raw, unfiltered organic honey, organic maple syrup, or stevia. These should be only consumed in very small amounts. Even though stevia, which are leaves from the stevia plant dehydrated and ground into powder, has become more prominent and is natural, even when it's organic, I have a good percentage of patients of people clinically that do not test well for it. So the liver's ability to process stevia may have something to do with this. And so stevia may not be as healthy as we once thought either. Many people, when they are going through emotional experiences, reach for sugar to make them feel better. Sugar creates the same feel-good euphoria as cocaine in the body because it influences the same chemicals in the brain. This is why many will reach for something sweet when they feel anxious, angry, afraid, guilty, etc. We must take note of the emotions we experience that drive us to the sugar and wanting to feel good, and then spend some time letting go of those emotions. Then you can feel good without needing something to artificially create this and cover up your negative emotion. Another of the dangers of constantly consuming sugar is increasing your risk of hypoglycemia. When you consume sugar, your body will pump out insulin in order to use this hormone to facilitate pushing sugar into your body's cells for usage. The body may create too much insulin, causing blood sugar levels to drop rapidly. This is known as functional hypoglycemia, or the inability of the body to properly handle sugar. Cerebral dysfunction can happen in this state, and in some cases, people exhibit signs of psychosis, mental confusion, fatigue, nervousness, dramatic mood swings, headaches, depression, and anxiety. By completely stopping consumption of refined sugar, many people have seen a dramatic decrease in symptoms. High fructose corn syrup comes from genetically modified corn and has the same damaging effects as sugar. I have recently even seen marketing with certain products that advocate that they don't have high fructose corn syrup. But when looking at the ingredients, you see that the main sweetening ingredient is sugar. It is just more deception and hypocrisy from people wanting to sell their own products. This is why it is critical to start looking at and questioning all of the ingredients that are found in the foods you regularly consume. As you do this and choose a healthier lifestyle, you will be making much of your own food so that you can control what you eat. The healthier you become, the less you will be eating foods that are processed and come in boxes and bags. Even in most of the organic cereals, for example, you will find organic cane sugar. While organic cane sugar is healthier, it is still sugar that's been separated from its source. I encourage people to reach for fruit whenever they have a craving for sugar. Fruit sugar is processed and seen by the body very differently than it sees refined sugar. Dried organic black mission figs are an amazing brain food, destroyer of bad bacteria in the gut, and can instantly cool a sugar craving. Perhaps 50% of the time or more, it could be possible that your brain just needs actual good sugar. The brain consumes a lot of glucose. If a craving doesn't go away after consuming fruit, then I would explore the possible emotional components to a craving. Many people clinically mention sugar filling an emotional emptiness. They may say that life does not feel sweet or pleasurable to them, only painful. The lack of sweetness can be the mask that parades around, covering feelings of weakness, control, guilt, lack, and limitation. Sugar can also heavily mask a deep-seated craving for love and attention. These things can only be transformed by having an awareness of these feelings that drive the craving, and then the dedication to surrender them. The bottom line here is that refined sugar is catastrophic for health, leads to chronic disease, including cancer and heart disease, and also contributes to a rise in depression and anxiety. The answer is clear that refined sugar should be avoided at all costs. Moderation is not the answer. Artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners are just that, artificial. They are not natural and are very destructive to the body. Splenda, otherwise known as sucralose, Equal, Sweeten Low, aspartame, or any other artificial sweetener should be strictly avoided, especially if you are depressed, anxious, or have a chronic disease. They are neurotoxic and poisonous to the brain. Many people have turned to these alternatives believing that they do not raise glycemic or blood sugar levels and do not affect the production and absorption of insulin. Yet evidence is suggesting that this just isn't the case, and that blood sugar and insulin levels do rise upon consumption, particularly with those who are already obese or overweight. Artificial sweeteners are also bad for the health of your digestive system. In one study with male rats, it was shown that Splenda negatively impacts the gut microbiome, decreasing the amount of healthy bacteria that normally contributes to good health. Consumption of artificial sweeteners may also affect the reward system of the brain, much like sugar. Although they are touted to be effective for weight loss, they actually may trigger cravings and a desire for more sweets, leading to weight gain. Consumption of artificially sweetened beverages has been linked to an increase of type 2 diabetes, much the same as it is with the consumption of beverages with refined sugar. Diabetes is just another disease that is the product of widespread inflammation in the body. These artificial products are toxic and create inflammation in the body. Cancer is another health problem driven by inflammation. One study showed a correlation between consumption of artificial sweeteners and increased risk of leukemia and lymphoma. Artificial sweeteners also have been linked with other health conditions such as headaches and seizures. Adequate levels of neurotransmitters are critical for feeling well. In this study, antioxidant levels and neurotransmitters was severely reduced with rats' brains in just 40 days of exposure to aspartame. People were convinced a generation ago that fat was bad for us, so they removed fat from many products. The fat naturally found in foods is not necessarily bad, but fat was vilified, and they took fat out of everything and put sugar in everything. Then sugar was vilified, so they said that artificial sweetener was the way to go. The more our food is messed with and processed, the worse it becomes. Artificial sweeteners are very acidic, and the body will have to utilize alkaline minerals to neutralize the extreme acidity of these artificial sweeteners. People are already in short supply of the most abundant alkaline minerals: calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and phosphorus. When your body doesn't have enough of these, it will steal them ultimately from the bones, calcium, leaving us with a generation of people with porous bone issues, osteoporosis. In the short run, it may appear that these sweeteners aren't causing problems because symptoms don't appear right away. But over time, they will lead to grave health problems and need to be avoided completely because of their extreme toxicity. Dairy products. Dairy is one food that is often mentioned in Chinese medicine as causing a lot of problems, especially inflammation. Dairy, all products, conventional and organic, produces more dampness internally than perhaps any other food. Dampness is a pathogenic factor and term that is used in Chinese medicine. Dampness gums things up and slows things down in the body, causing dysfunction. People who are depressed feel down or slowed down. Dampness leads to phlegm buildup in the body because the longer something is stagnant, the more potential it has to accumulate together. Phlegm buildup leads to things becoming hard and turning into what the Chinese called a nodule. Nodules can be cysts, fibroids, or tumors. These are protective mechanisms for the body due to an imbalance that has occurred. People who are depressed typically are more stagnant in body, mind, or both. Dairy, in all forms, is not good for anyone that wishes to be healthy in today's age. Dairy in its organic, raw, natural, non-altered form is the perfect food for calves, not necessarily humans. One of the things that causes problems for many people in cow's milk is lactose. Lactose, a naturally occurring sugar found in cow's milk, needs the enzyme lactase in order to be digested. After nursing, many people lose the ability to make lactase. In fact, over 75% of the population loses the ability to process this sugar after the age of 4, especially if you are of Asian or African American descent. When one loses the ability to do this, one will begin to experience abdominal pain, bloating, flatulence, diarrhea, and other gastrointestinal symptoms. These symptoms alone should be proof enough when cow's milk is consumed that the body does not process it very well, which leads to more and more symptoms. Rotting and fermenting sugar and protein in the intestines leads to chronic inflammation. Strangely, many people don't think that the production of such symptoms like gas is abnormal. For many, though, not being able to process lactose is solved by buying a form of milk that doesn't have lactose or by consuming over-the-counter pills to break down lactose. However, as many have experienced, problems still continue with dairy consumption because it is not just lactose that is the problem. Not being able to process lactose is not an allergy. However, many people have very powerful allergic reactions to dairy, including hives, swelling, wheezing, congestion, diarrhea, nausea, headaches, joint swelling, abdominal pain, chronic fatigue, and more. Reactions can be immediate or delayed, sometimes manifesting 24 to 72 hours later. Delayed reactions make it more difficult to correlate symptoms with dairy. One study confirms that consumption of cow's milk is directly correlated with acid reflux. If you drink milk and have acid reflux, it is advisable to stop immediately. Some of the most common medications in the world today are for acid reflux. Most people come into the clinic with acid reflux. One of the first things mentioned that should be cut out of the diet in all forms is dairy. In most cases, marked improvement is seen within 1 week's time when people cut this out. We don't consume the same dairy products our ancestors did. Conventional dairy products today breed health problems because they are consuming the same disease-causing foods that we are, genetically modified grains. Cows were meant to eat grass in a pasture that is pesticide-free, not genetically modified grains. Cows today are so inhumanely treated that many of them grow up in a narrow bin and are rarely outside in the sun eating grass. They are just used for what we can get from them. Cows today are injected with lots of growth hormones. Growth hormones ensure that calves grow faster so that they can be used for food as early as possible. Additionally, other hormones are given to cows so that they produce milk continuously throughout their lives. We would not expect a woman to nurse a child for 5 years straight, but cows are injected with hormones to ensure they continue to produce milk. We know that breast cancer is heavily influenced by too much estrogen, which is a hormone. Cow's milk contains extraordinary amounts of estrogen. Cows are a commodity, and they need to be forced to grow so that a profit can be made off of them. Humans are the only species that consume milk after infancy. Cow's milk was designed for cows, not humans. It was made to take a calf to a 700 to 1,200 pound cow in a very short period of time, less than 2 years. The protein in milk, casein and whey, is huge from a molecular perspective, much larger than humans can process at times. It is not a healthy protein option even when it's organic. If you must have a protein powder, I suggest an organic plant-based protein powder. Clinically, when people are bodybuilding and it is suggested to stop using dairy-based products, marked improvements in digestive symptoms have been noted anecdotally. Cow's milk is legally allowed certain levels of blood, pus, and feces. One of the reasons for this is because of how commonly cows get mastitis, which is an infection of the udder. It is the most common reason for the premature slaughter of a cow and the second most frequent cause of death. This occurs because many cows are milked continuously for much of their life. They become so inflamed with mastitis that pus and blood finds its way into the milk itself. Certain levels are allowable from a legal perspective. When you consume milk, you don't even realize you may be consuming blood, pus, and feces. It looks white and clean, but it is not. Due to mastitis, the FDA has approved the use of over 80 different antibiotic drugs for factory farms. When the public is being told that they find no trace of antibiotics in the milk supply, it is because only 4 of the 80 are being tested. Some people are highly allergic to antibiotics, which could be one of the main reasons why so many people are allergic to dairy these days. Furthermore, when cows are injected with so many antibiotics, and then the bacteria become resistant to such drugs, that bacteria can find its way into the milk supply, contributing to massive inflammation for the human digestive system. We have been told that dairy is needed for us to get calcium and to have strong bones. Countries with the highest consumption of dairy have the highest incidences of bone fractures. Calcium itself, especially from dairy, does not necessarily make bones strong. The calcium in cow's milk may not be well absorbed. Cows grow to be very powerful and strong animals, and what they eat naturally in order to get to this size is lots of grass or plant food. The calcium found in green leafy vegetables is far better and more absorbable than the calcium found in dairy will ever be. So be sure to eat your kale, collard greens, or any other green leafy vegetable. Consumption of cow's milk has been directly linked with cancer. In one study, women who drank 2 or more glasses of milk per day showed a 44% increase in the risk of developing ovarian cancer. The risk for men developing prostate cancer is also directly linked to the consumption of cow's milk. The consumption of cow's milk has been linked to many other types of cancer and health conditions, including joint pain, arthritis, heart disease, Crohn's disease, breast cancer, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, infertility, menstrual cramps, and many other conditions. Lastly, cow's milk is homogenized and pasteurized. When the milkman brought milk raw and fresh in a very short period, it would separate into water and cream and milk. The fat naturally separated from the water. People would simply shake the bottle to manually homogenize or make it the same. Homogenization alters the fat structure and makes it smaller so that this doesn't occur. Again, we are altering nature, and that is not good. Pasteurization heats the milk up to just below boiling to kill bacteria. However, people have consumed raw milk without problems for thousands of years. Not only does pasteurization kill bacteria, it pretty much kills everything else. Pasteurization kills all the enzymes in the milk and many of the vital phytonutrients. Drinking milk straight from the cow or goat or sheep is the only way to consume milk, if at all. Even then, cow's milk was designed for baby calves and not humans. Dairy farms are also some of the most destructive, resource-consuming foods on the planet. If we wish to help the earth be more sustainable for everyone, the decline of dairy consumption and beef is wise. Milk, cheese, cottage cheese, sour cream, kefir, and yogurt, yes, even this, should be avoided. If you have good eating practices and have strengthened your digestive system through other means, you will not need to supplement with probiotics. Trying to get probiotics through yogurt is pointless. Dairy feeds bacteria in the gut. It's like steroids for bacteria. Candida is a reaction to a growing bacterial problem in the gut. This is how antibiotics were discovered. Bacteria were left out in the air in a petri dish, and by the time Alexander Fleming returned to the lab, a fungus had completely consumed the bacteria. This mold or fungus became what we now know as the first antibiotic. Candida is not the problem in the body. Candida is simply a natural reaction the body is having to excess harmful bacteria. Target the bacteria, not the fungus. Probiotics and dairy, especially yogurt, is nothing more than a sneaky, deceptive marketing ploy to sell more milk and cause disease. Milk does not do a body good. It is a horrible disease and inflammation-spreading food. Chinese medicine is supportive of a healing role that grass-fed beef can have in the diet, but most people consume far too much beef as it is. Additionally, most beef consumed today is not organic, which can further contribute to health problems. Try considering some of the organic nut milk options that exist today. Organic almond, coconut, and rice milk are good alternatives to regular animal's milk. It was tough to get used to at first, but then I sucked it up and I just did it. Now I actually enjoy it. An even better option is to make these nut milks yourself at home. This will ensure freshness and a lack of preservatives. Polyunsaturated vegetable oils. The use of polyunsaturated vegetable oils is at the heart of so many health problems today, including depression. Foods that are fried, especially in polyunsaturated vegetable oils, including corn, safflower, soy, canola, and sunflower oil, create a lot of internal heat and inflammation and are very unhealthy. This is especially true considering that these oils are made mostly from foods that are genetically modified, with corn, soy, and canola. We have been brainwashed to believe that polyunsaturated oils are the ones that are the best for us. This isn't even remotely true. Rancidity is the complete or incomplete oxidation or hydrolysis of fats when exposed to air and oxygen, light, heat, and moisture, resulting in an unpleasant smell and taste. Polyunsaturated fatty acids found in these vegetable oils have molecular bonds that break down easily when they react with oxygen, creating a free radical that turns normal fatty acids in the body into dangerous molecules that cause destruction in the body. Polyunsaturated fat found in vegetables is not harmful in and of itself, the way it is found in its natural, organic, and unprocessed state, but it becomes so if and when you eat too much of it, and or especially when the oils degrade, which occurs during refining and exposure to oxygen, processing, and heating, which is cooking. All of the oils that are used in cooking in restaurants and homes are polyunsaturated oils such as corn, soy, safflower, sunflower, and canola. Once these foods are processed for their oils, they immediately begin to go rancid. Unsaturated fats are not stable fats and are highly subject to oxidation, creating rancidity. No one would eat rancid foods, but all of these oils go rancid very quickly after being exposed to oxygen. You would never know they are rancid, though, because when they are processed, they craftily remove the offending smell and taste. When these oils are heated, they turn into trans fats. Over 30,000 deaths, some say as high as 100,000 per year, can be directly attributed to the consumption of these oils. Even worse than direct correlation is that these fats have also been linked to coronary heart disease, which is the number one killer in the USA. Spanish researchers who analyzed the diet of 12,059 people over 6 years found a 48% increase in major depression with those that consumed trans fats over those who did not. Every time you cook on the stove with these oils, you consume this awful disease-causing substance. Trans fats have been banned in food because of how destructive they are to our health. Every time you consume something fried at home or in a restaurant, you are essentially consuming something close to trans fats. It takes great lengths of time for the body to get rid of these fats, and they destroy the liver and the gallbladder. In order to neutralize the free radicals and destruction these oils cause, antioxidants are needed. Antioxidants come from fresh organic fruits and vegetables. Today, so many people eat fried food weekly and consume very little vegetables and fruits. This is another one of the reasons health has declined so fast in the USA in the last couple decades. No one should be consuming fried foods if you want to be healthy and depression-free. Trans fats occur naturally in some animal products, including butter, milk, and cheese, which are dairy products and should be avoided as well. The hydrogenation process, which produces trans fat, is responsible for the creation of products such as margarine and Crisco. They are almost chemically plastic and are awful. Partially hydrogenating a vegetable oil increases its shelf life and decreases the need for refrigeration. These oils are found in many baked goods. They have been linked to increased risk of heart disease, obesity, high blood pressure, cancer, and type 2 diabetes. The story of the use of these oils is just another example of greed, money, power, and control. Here is the short version of it. People used to cook with butter, lard, tallow, and coconut oil until about 40 to 60 years ago. Saturated fat is stable and is not subject to the rancidity of unsaturated oils. Polyunsaturated oils were used commonly in oil-based paint. When they started using petroleum in paint instead of vegetable-based oils, those who produced these oils realized that they would lose much of their business. They decided to start very crafty marketing campaigns to deceive people into thinking that the, quote, tropical, unquote, oils, such as palm and coconut, were bad along with butter and lard. The dominating idea birthed out of this is that saturated fat is bad for you and is the cause of heart disease, which is not true. So people stopped using these natural oils and sources of saturated fats and started consuming these polyunsaturated vegetable oils. The best oils to use for cooking are saturated ones, such as organic coconut oil and palm oil, which have been cold pressed and have not been exposed to light or heat. These are the ones that we should be consuming. Organic cold pressed olive oil is good if it is not heated and is best used on salads cold. If I cook on the stove, I always do it with coconut oil. Even though coconut oil is a stable fat, cooking with it does heat it up and destroys some of its nutrients. Being conservative is better when it comes to cooked food. Consuming a little raw, cold-pressed organic coconut oil per day may help to feed the brain and can have a powerful effect on clarity and brain fog. Coconut oil also gives the body a very powerful form of energy, medium-chain fatty acids, which can give you a good pick-me-up during the day. Today, I am convinced that the liver and gallbladder of most people are so gummed up with toxins that we need to be careful of how much fat we consume. If the liver cannot produce bile that it needs to, the gallbladder will not be able to help emulsify or break down the fat that we consume. This unprocessed fat is causing many people wide and varied health problems in the world today. We see this in blood work when triglycerides are elevated. Raw fat naturally found in nature, especially in things such as nuts and seeds, are healthy for the body. We need fat for good health. Eating fat does not make you fat. Eating the wrong types of fat and eating too much fat will make you diseased and obese. Never consume processed vegetable oils, especially ones that are heated, either on the stove or used for frying. Consume fats in their natural forms. Coconuts, avocados, nuts, seeds are best consumed raw and uncooked. If you must cook or saute vegetables, do so with moderate heat using organic coconut oil. Too much of any fat that is consumed today can cause the liver to work much harder. The liver is the main organ in Chinese medicine that contributes to depression. This is why it is necessary to only get fat that is absolutely necessary and avoid fats that are harmful to health. Coffee. Non-organic coffee is regularly consumed by many people these days. Coffee shops abound all over major cities. Caffeine found in coffee is the most commonly consumed psychoactive substance or drug on the planet. 90% of adults consume it regularly, with 2 cups per day being the average. The looming question is whether coffee is good for or detrimental to our health. Most people wake up and the first liquid that is consumed for the day is a fresh cup or 2 or 3 of coffee. Numerous studies exist that tout the benefits of coffee. One must be careful about who is conducting the studies because, much like the pharmaceutical companies fund studies to support their drugs, those in the coffee industry use studies to promote and sell their products as well. A few good reasons exist why coffee should not be consumed, especially as it is related to depression. First, coffee is sprayed with hefty amounts of pesticides, many of which are banned in the USA but are not in third world countries. As we mentioned above, you cannot be exposed to these harsh chemicals and not expect them to be carcinogenic, cancer-causing agents. Secondly, coffee, from a Chinese perspective, focuses most of its action on the liver. The liver is the organ that is already overburdened, toxic, and malnourished. Coffee may, in some cases, put more pressure on this organ, promoting further stress. It creates heat, and most people, from a Chinese perspective, already have conditions related to too much heat or inflammation being present in the body. Third, coffee today is not consumed black by many people. Many add sugar, fat, or both to their coffee, which is not healthy. It is the liver's job to break down fat with bile, and if you already have liver symptoms, adding more fat for the liver to process would be antithetical to healing. It would be like giving more work to somebody who has already worked 60 hours per week. Fat is the most difficult thing for the body to break down digestively speaking. The added sugar, artificial sweeteners, and creamer, or fat, make this a horrible cocktail of toxins for people. Fourth, coffee and the consumption of caffeine is known to be addictive, and many people have significant withdrawal symptoms when stopping. Coffee, organically grown and consumed black in minimal amounts, 1 to 2 cups per day, has been a wonderful beverage for people for hundreds of years. It is the heavy use of pesticides, added fat, sugar, and overconsumption that causes problems for people in the world today, especially those with depression. If you do have coffee, it is suggested that it be consumed with a little raw organic honey or maple syrup only. Fat and sugar in coffee should not be combined together.